I'm actually out of Boston, Massachusetts, and I'm just driving around the country, and I ended up in Tampa, like 4 hours ago. And I also do comedy. I just tell stories, so here's a bunch of mine. And if you like me enough, I actually do have CDs in my car. So I have a 12-year-old sister who is wonderful and is kind of slow at picking up things in life. By that I mean she is afraid of almost everything that you can imagine. So when about a year ago her friend's family accidentally, not accidentally, but they didn't know she was afraid, showed her a Holocaust film, she didn't really understand the time restraints and thought that they were coming to get her for a long time. She would wake up crying in the middle of the night for fear that the Nazis were going to knock on the door and, I guess, abduct us. Which is goofy because my last name is Shultz and she looks like an Aryan child. But while she was afraid of that, she had the same very irrational fear of sharks. That a pack of sharks would show up at the house and kidnap her, and I don't know what would have happened next. But the sharks were going to come, and she was terrified of that for a long time. My sister, being 12 and being a girl and going to public school, is of course fascinated with Pokemon, which I'm sure many of you at least have the concept of, and if you were born any time after 1985, probably grew up with as well. If not, the general concept is when you're 10 years old, you receive a Pokemon which substitutes an animal, and you go out on a journey to try to catch all of them and defeat other people with Pokemon. I can accept that he's 10, he goes out to the world, I can accept that he's trying to catch every animal in the world. The only concept in Pokemon that doesn't make sense to me is one, where every so often, about 150 new ones are introduced. In that slew, the baby version of a former Pokemon is introduced to the crowd. And the example is Pikachu is the iconic Pokemon that everybody can identify. 5 years later, the baby version is introduced. That's like if today, we were killing chickens every day and tomorrow discovered eggs. Or we were humans and tomorrow we started to give birth and understood how that worked. When I was in kindergarten, or maybe preschool, I don't think it was public school, Santa Claus came through the classroom, and my gift from Santa Claus was a VHS copy of the Rugrats Hanukkah. That's honest to God happened. And I love that story. Also, a lot of comedians have jokes about the Muppet Babies, which I totally understand because they're ridiculous. The theme song is kind of creepy. The whole premise is absurd. They grow up to be themselves, but not because they're the spawns of the already Muppets, and they don't look anything like the Muppets, and you never see the granny. And many comedians have done jokes with it. I've done research to try to find my own joke, and I couldn't, but I was able to make myself laugh. So I have an Instagram account, and what I will do is I will take a picture of like a sunrise, or a photo of somebody else, like me doing an open mic, with the hashtag Muppet Babies. Because what that does is that gets Muppet fans everywhere to favorite my photo and comment why. And I don't respond, it just makes me happy. My friend Shane is a good friend of mine, and both of Shane's parents are deaf, which I wouldn't normally explain except I'm going to talk about deaf people. So, I don't know if anybody's ever been in a situation where a deaf party is happening. Jen, okay, yeah. So you probably know the end of the story, that's alright. So, it applies to any party of deaf people. Deaf people, of course, communicate through sign language, and I've come to realize that almost all deaf people are friends. So, Shane is not deaf, so Shane and I and a few other friends would be hanging out in his living room, let's say, just doing something, and his mother and a slew of other deaf people would be in the kitchen, and it'd be silent, of course, because they're using sign language, and every 5-10 minutes, a very non-coherent burst of laughter would go out, and it's the scariest thing I've ever heard, because they've never heard laughter, so it doesn't sound like laughter, it's just terrifying, and awesome. And I think this is probably going to be my closer for the night, but I would hate my high school self would hate me now, but I've come to kind of like country music, especially country radio, because it's very... Country radio, if you haven't listened to it, you can hear things that you can never hear anywhere else. Like the commercial for Legal Seafoods, where the really weird fish is trying to seduce the woman, and the closing line is, "You're pretty cute and I think you like fish," and it's awesome because it's just this... I just picture like the fish on the wall, like trying to seduce a woman. But the best thing I've ever heard on any radio station, I was just thumbing through channels, and it was the tail end of the song, and I don't have a very good country voice, but imagine a Keith Urban-esque person singing these words. And it's the last two lines of the song, and I think it sounds familiar, and the last two lines go, and I'll be rolling down the street, smoking Indo, sipping on gin and juice, with my mind on my money, and my money on my mind. And the song cuts, and I realized two things. One, this is a very, very heavy country version of Snoop Dogg's Gin and Juice. And the other thing I realized is that Snoop Dogg's Gin and Juice is a very passable country song. And I think that's a true reason to everybody.